Welcome to Kelly Rene Every Day, where I'm here dedicated to teaching you the fundamentals of crochet through beginner-friendly projects. Today I'm going to walk you through how to create the Soft Simplicity Crochet Scarf that you see here. This scarf is truly beginner-friendly in that it uses only the chain, single, and double crochet stitches to create the granny stripes pattern. You can find this free written pattern for this project and many others at my website, kellyreneeveryday.com. Now, I will have a link to that down below in the description. Additionally, I encourage you to like this video if you find it helpful. And if you have any questions, make sure to leave those in the description because I do answer all questions. Now, lastly, please consider subscribing to my channel so that when I upload new videos, you will get notified. So I think we're ready to get into it. First things we're going to talk about are the supplies that you're going to need to get started. So first of all, let's talk about the yarn. We are going to be holding two yarns together at the same time as we create the stitches. So the base yarn that we have is this I Love This yarn. This is super soft, super savings. This is considered an economy yarn. Now, I truly love the I Love This yarn line. It's found at Hobby Lobby, or you can also find it online, and I will link that down below. Now, on this skein, you only need one skein to create the scarf as you see here. And this has 355 yards or 325 meters. It is 100% cotton and it is a number 4 weight yarn. So again, consider if you have any number 4 weight yarns in your stash, consider it. I will tell you this, I find this yarn, in my opinion, is a little bit softer than some of the other economy yarns, but whatever you like is going to work. Okay, so first you want to have a base yarn. The second yarn that we're going to hold together with is going to be the Caron Latte Cakes. This Caron Latte Cakes has this little bit of a halo, a fuzz to it. And if we look at our actual scarf here, you're going to see these little strands coming up. That is what creates the softness and kind of a luxurious feel. So I added it to this to give it kind of a leveled up effect. So this is the Caron Latte Cakes. It is in the cream color, and on one of these cakes, there is, let me see how many yards here. It is, oh, here it is, 530 yards or 485 meters, okay? This is considered a number 5 bulky weight yarn, and I think that is because of the strands, but the yarn itself really isn't super thick, okay? It adds a really nice softness to the scarf. That's what I loved about it. Now, as far as crochet hooks, I used an L11 or an 8mm hook. Since I'm holding the two together, I needed a little bit larger hook, so that's why I went up to an 8mm. This is a Susan Bates. It can be any 8mm. And then you're gonna need a scissors at some point when you cut off, and then also a needle to weave in the ends. Now, I will tell you that all of the links to these supplies, if you wanted to get them online, are gonna be found down below in the description. But again, Hobby Lobby, and actually Caron cakes are found at Michael's. So if you have any of those stores near you, you can find these locally as well. So with that, I think we're ready to get into the stitching. Okay, we're ready to get into things now. So I want to talk a little bit about the construction and the size that we're going to get here. So first of all, the size of our scarf is going to be 11 inches wide across, and it's then going to be a length of 57 inches. That is what you can accomplish with one skein of the I Love This yarn. Now, if you choose to make it longer, then you're just going to add another skein or another amount of length. So that's totally going to be customizable for you. But with one skein, you can accomplish an 11-inch wide by 57 inches long. Okay, now there is a stitch multiple. We are going to be chaining our foundation stitch along the end here in multiples of 3 plus 5. So that means that in my case, I have, and I'm going to count my what we call our granny clusters, and I'll be demonstrating this later. I have 1, this is a cluster of 3 double crochets, and I'm just going to go across the row here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And that's going to be consistent with every one of my rows. I'm going to have 7 granny clusters going across. So one granny cluster requires 3 chain stitches. Okay, so if I have 7 going across, that means to accomplish 7 granny clusters, I'm going to take 3 times 7, the number of clusters, that's 21, plus an additional 5 chains on my foundation to get the right count so I can go back and forth. So that means that I'm going to take 21, 3 times 7, 21, plus 5. My foundation chain is going to be 26 chains. Now after that, my first official row is actually not going to be the granny clusters yet. I'm going to put a row of single crochet going back. I like that only for the reason that it establishes a more even row on the end. Okay, so I'm going to do my chain of 26. Then I'm going to go back starting in the second chain from my hook. I'm going to do 25 single crochets back to the very end. And then I'm going to start my first row of the granny cluster stripes. Okay. So, so then you just continue on. So I'm going to get you started. Okay. So now we're ready to get started. We are going to be holding together our 2 strands of yarn. In my case, it's going to be the latte cakes and the I love this yarn. And we want to put a slip knot in place. And there's a number of ways of doing that and getting our hook on our yarn and just pulling. Now we want to get our loop on the largest part of our hook here, and we are going to chain 26. To chain, we are simply going to yarn over and pull through. Now, something I'm going to tell you about the chain is that you want to stay on the loose side. Try not to be super tight with the yarn around here. Otherwise, that very end is going to be like narrower than the rest of the width of your scarf. So I'm going to zoom in here so that you can see what I'm doing. So again, nice and loose. Okay, so it's here, but notice that there is a little bit of a gap. Okay, I'm going to yarn over and I'm going to pull through. I'm going to continue to do that for a total of 26 chains. Okay, so I'm going to chain 26. I'm going to stop the video here. I encourage you to do that same thing. And then I'm going to come back and we're going to start our first row. So I have 26 chains all the way along. My first row will be a single crochet starting with the second chain from my hook. So the loop that our loop on our hook is coming out of is the first chain. The second chain is going to be the one right next to it. So I'm going to do a single crochet in that second chain from the hook. I'm going to go directly in, yarn over, pull up my loop, yarn over, and then pull through 2. So that's my single crochet. And I'm going to do that in each one of the chains all the way to the very end for a total of 25 chains. So again, another single crochet going directly into the chain, yarn over, pull up that loop, yarn over, and pull through 2. Go directly back in, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, and pull through 2. Go in, and we're going to continue that all the way to the very end. And what you're going to find is you're going to have 25 single crochets total on this very first row. I'm going to finish up this row and I will be back to show you how to turn and start our granny cluster stripe. So now I have 25 single crochets going all the way back. Now it's always good. I like to count my stitches, and to count your stitches here, what we're going to do, I'm going to take this out and we're simply going to look at the very top of the row that we just made, the single crochets, and each one of our stitches, not the loop that was coming out or was on our hook, but what it's coming out of is the first stitch. So that's going to be our first one, and you can see that it creates this V effect, okay, a V each time. So as we look here, we can count them. We can count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Keep my finger on that one. 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, and the 25th is kind of making this corner right here. It's a full V there. So we have 25. That's exactly what we need on our first row. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we are going to put our hook back in, and I am going to chain 2. So I'm going to simply yarn over, pull through that loop. That's 1, and 2, and now we're going to turn to then go back in the opposite direction, okay? So as we start our row, we are always going to double crochet into the first stitch. So at the bottom of our chain 2 and underneath the 2 V's of the last stitch on the previous row, we're going to do a double crochet. So when we double crochet, we're going to yarn over first, then we're going to go in underneath those 2 V's. So right underneath these 2 guys, we're going to yarn over, pull up that loop. You're going to have 3 loops on. Yarn over, just pull through the first 2, and then you're going to yarn over and pull through the last 2. Okay, so that's our first double crochet. So now that's in our first spot here. We are going to skip 2 stitches. So if we turn, we're going to skip over this one and this one. So on the side here, it's going to be kind of that hole there, that hole there. We're going to skip those 2. And in the next one, we are going to do 3 double crochets. This is called a granny cluster. Okay, so that means I'm going to yarn over 3 double crochets right into that 3rd stitch from where I was at. I'm going to yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. So that's the first double crochet in that stitch. I'm going to go right back into that same spot with another double crochet. So I'm going to yarn over, go right back in, yarn over, pull up that loop, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. So that's 2 double crochets in there, and I need to do a 3rd one. Yarn over, go back in, yarn over, pull up that loop, yarn over, pull through just the 2, and then yarn over, pull through the last 2. So here I am, and I have my first granny cluster. My granny cluster is always going to be 1, 2, 3 double crochets going into the same stitch. Now I'm going to continue, and I'm going to do this across 6 more times for a total. I'm going to have a total on every one of my rows of 7 granny clusters. I skip the next 2 single crochets from the previous row. So I'm going to skip this one and this one. So as I turn this, I'm going to skip. And then in that 3rd one, I'm going to do another 3 double crochets or a granny cluster. Yarn over, go into that 3rd one, yarn over, pull up my loop, yarn over, pull through just the 2, yarn over, pull through the last 2. First one. Then we're going to do a 2nd one. And a 3rd one. Okay, so 3 double crochets in that same stitch. And then I'm going to continue, skip 2, 1, 2, and I'm going to do a granny cluster, 3 double crochets into that 3rd stitch away. So 1, 2, here we go, and 3. So let's see what we've done. I'm going to kind of put this down. So now so far on this row, and this is our row number 2, we did a double crochet by itself, we skipped 2, and now we did a granny cluster. That was our first one with 3 double crochets, skipped 2, then another granny cluster, skipped 2, and a granny cluster, and we're going to continue down the row. Okay, and what you're going to do is you're going to do, like I said, a total of 1, 2, 3, total of 7 going all the way down. When you get to the 7th one, you're still going to have 3 stitches left at the end of the row, and I'm going to meet you up back there to show you how to finish the row and start the next one. Okay, I'm here at the end of this row, and I'm going to put in my very last granny cluster. So I'm going to yarn over, put my 3 double crochets into my next stitch, 2 and 3. And then what we're going to find is on this row, there are 1, 2, 3 stitches left. So if we look at the top, 1, 2, 3. And I'm going to skip 2 just like I was, and I'm just going to put 1 double crochet into the very last stitch on this row. So I'm going to yarn over, and I'm going to go into that very last stitch under both parts of that single crochet. I'm going to yarn over, pull up that loop, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2, and that finishes the row. So just on a single, or I'm sorry, on 1 double crochet into that last spot. Now I'm going to simply chain 2, and then we're going to turn, and we're going to work back in the opposite direction. Now this is my third row that I'm starting, and this is going to be the row that I repeat for the rest of the length of my scarf. Now as we look here, you're going to notice that where this double crochet was, that last double crochet, there is a space between the double crochet on the very end and my first granny cluster. So right here is that space. We are going to do 1 double crochet into the space, not into the stitch, but actually into the space. So I'm going to yarn over, and I'm going to go into the space, yarn over, pull up the loop through that space, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, and then pull through 2. So I'm just going to put 1 double crochet into that space. Now I'm going to work in the spaces between the clusters. So the space in between the cluster is right here, and I'm going to do a granny cluster into that space. So I'm going to yarn over, put my 3 double crochets in, 2, and a third. And then I'm going to continue that very same thing into the next granny cluster space. So I'm going to yarn over, go into the space with 3 double crochets for another granny cluster. And I'm going to continue to do that till the end of this row. And again, this row, just like the previous, is going to have a total of 7 granny clusters. So the last row had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. This one as well is going to have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 into each one of these spaces. And then I'm going to finish this row with my granny clusters in each one of those spaces. And then I'll show you how to finish this row and then continue to the next. So now I am towards the end here. I have 1 more granny cluster to add to my third row. So I'm going to pick up, I'm going to yarn over, and I'm going to put my last granny cluster in the last granny space. So 3 double crochets in that very last spot. Okay. And then I need to end my row. So just like I did on the previous row, I'm always going to end, as I said, on a double crochet. Now that double crochet is going to be between the chain from the previous row and the double crochet. So you're going to kind of pull these apart, and that's where I'm going to add my last double crochet right in there. And that's going to ensure that our edges stay nice and straight as we go. So it kind of squares off that side. Okay. So now we've finished this row. This is our repeat row. So this is going to be the row that we continue to repeat all the way to the length of the scarf that we want. So now I'm going to chain 2, always start each row with a chain 2. I'm going to turn, and then just like we did on the previous row, we are going to do a 1 double crochet into the granny space that was between the full granny cluster and then the end that I just created. So yarn over, just 1 double crochet into that space. Again, this starts our row, and this also ensures that we have nice straight sides. And then now between the first 2 full granny clusters, I'm going to do a granny cluster into this space. So yarn over and do my 3 double crochets. And now you know everything there is to continue and create the length that you desire. Okay, so I'm going to go all the way to the end. And then the last thing I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how to finish up the scarf with a nice end. Okay, so I just completed my 4th row. And again, remember, we're always going to have 7 full granny clusters in every one of our rows. So if I start here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So as long as you keep that rhythm and you always end with 1 double crochet on the very ends, you are going to have a nice even sides for your scarf. Now, I just wanted to kind of clue you in on how I finished mine up. Now, if you recall, we chained our first foundation chain, and then the very first row that we used when we came back was a single crochet row. That's exactly how we're going to end this. So once we get to the point where we can kind of see that we're, to the end of our skein, or we're as long as we want this to be. Now all that we're going to do is we're going to add a row on the top of a single crochet to finish it off. And to do that, once you get there, you're only going to chain 1, and then you're going to turn. And then now, starting in the very first stitch, not in the spaces anymore, but in the stitch. So right underneath our V, if you would, on the top of the stitch, we're going to go right in, and we're going to do a single crochet in each one of the stitches all the way along. And it just finishes it off really nicely. If you didn't add this, I would say it's optional, but I just think it gives a nice finished look, and then it matches the start of our scarf. So all you're going to do then is you are going to finish up by putting a single crochet all the way along, and then you're simply going to tie off and weave in your ends. So that brings us to the end of our tutorial. I hope you enjoyed following along and hopefully making this granny cluster or granny stripes soft simplicity, crochet scarf. I sure enjoyed making it, and it's even better to wear. It's so nice and cozy and warm. Now, if you found that you liked my video, I would really appreciate a like. If you have any questions, don't forget to put those in the comments down below. Subscribe so that you can see my next videos. And I thank you for taking time to learn how to create this beautiful project. Till next time, thank you.